The champagne flute slipped from Jalisa's fingers, and for one impossible second, the entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. She caught it an inch from the marble floor, her heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Around her, women in gowns that cost more than her annual rent didn't even blink. They were used to perfection. She was used to surviving. Jalisa straightened, pressed her camera bag closer to her side, and reminded herself why she was here. Money. $3,000 for one night of event photography. Enough to keep the lights on for another month, maybe two if she ate ramen and skipped the heating bill. Detroit winters were brutal, but so was poverty. If you're loving this already, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which mafia romance trope is your favorite. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The Vittorio ballroom dripped with wealth so obscene it felt like a different species lived here. Crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars. Ice sculptures shaped like swans. A string quartet playing something Mozart probably wrote while crying into his powdered wig. And everywhere, people who belonged. Jalisa did not belong. She moved along the edge of the room, her camera a shield between her and this glittering world. Through the lens, she could pretend she was documenting rather than infiltrating. She captured a woman laughing, diamonds at her throat catching the light like trapped stars. A man in a tuxedo so perfectly tailored it probably had its own insurance policy. Two teenagers trying to sneak champagne behind a potted palm. Her feet ached in the clearance heels she'd bought specifically for tonight. Her dress, a simple black number from a consignment shop, felt like costume jewelry next to the designer gowns surrounding her. But she'd learned to be invisible. Photographers were supposed to disappear into the background, capturing moments without becoming part of them. She was good at being invisible. She'd had practice. More champagne? A server appeared at her elbow, tray extended. No, thank you. Jalisa smiled, the polite smile she'd perfected over years of service jobs. Working tonight. The server nodded and glided away, and Jalisa returned to her camera. She was framing a shot of the midnight countdown clock, an elaborate gold affair that dominated one wall, when she felt it. A hand on her wrist. Not gentle. Urgent. Jalisa turned, her pulse spiking, and found herself staring into the face of a woman who looked like she'd been carved from alabaster and anxiety. Late 50s, maybe 60. Hair swept into an elaborate updo. A burgundy gown that probably cost more than Jalisa's car, before the repo men took it. But it was her eyes that stopped Jalisa cold. Desperate. Absolutely desperate. I need your help. The woman's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the ballroom noise like a blade. Please. Jalisa's first instinct was to pull away. Her second was to wonder if this was some kind of test, if she'd accidentally photographed something she shouldn't have. Rich people had weird rules about privacy. I'm sorry, I'm just the photographer. Pretend you're my son's fiancée. The words hung in the air between them, absurd and impossible. Jalisa blinked. I'm sorry, what? The woman's grip tightened. Her nails, perfectly manicured, pressed crescents into Jalisa's skin. Just for tonight. Please. I'm begging you. This had to be a joke. Some kind of rich people entertainment where they messed with the help for kicks. Jalisa had heard stories. But the woman's face didn't look amused. She looked terrified. I think you have me confused with Mrs. Santino. The woman's voice cracked slightly. My name is Victoria Santino. My son is Orlando. And I need you to pretend to be engaged to him for the next 3 hours, or my family will be destroyed. Santino. Jalisa's blood went cold. Even in Detroit, even in her tiny world of overdue rent notices and emergency room bills for her father's final months, she'd heard the name Santino. Everyone had. The Santinos weren't just rich. They were connected. The kind of connected where words like alleged appeared a lot in newspaper articles, followed by words like racketeering and organized crime. Mafia. The Santinos were mafia. Jalisa tried to pull her wrist free. I think you need to find someone else. There is no one else. Victoria's eyes darted across the ballroom, tracking something. The Rossellis are here. The Mosellos. The Costas. They're circling. They smell blood. If they think Orlando is weak, if they think he can't even maintain a relationship, they'll move against us. Against him. That's not my problem. Jalisa finally yanked her arm free, taking a step back. Her camera bumped against her hip. I'm sorry about your situation, but I'm not. I'll pay you $50,000. The number hit Jalisa like a physical blow. 50,000. She could pay off her father's medical debt. She could fix her car. She could stop choosing between groceries and utilities. She could breathe. For 3 hours. Her voice came out strangled. 3 hours. Victoria reached into her tiny clutch, pulled out a business card, pressed it into Jalisa's hand. After midnight, you disappear. We'll say you had a family emergency. No one will ever bother you again. But right now, I need you to walk across this room, kiss my son on the cheek, and act like you're the happiest woman in the world. Jalisa looked down at the card. Heavy stock. Embossed lettering. An address in a part of the city where people didn't worry about things like bus schedules or which bills to pay first. She should say no. She should walk away, finish her photography job, take her $3,000 and get out of this golden cage before it locked behind her. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was. Where is he? The words came out before she could stop them. Victoria's face transformed, relief flooding her features so completely that she looked 10 years younger. The bar. Navy suit. His alone. Jalisa followed Victoria's gaze across the ballroom and found him immediately. Orlando Santino looked like someone had taken the concept of uncomfortable and given it a trust fund. He stood at the bar, one hand wrapped around a glass of what was probably very expensive scotch, his shoulders so tense they looked like they might snap. Navy suit, perfectly tailored. Dark hair swept back from a face that would have been handsome if it wasn't currently arranged in an expression of profound misery. He looked, Jalisa thought with sudden clarity, like someone drowning in a sea of expectations. What do I call you? Victoria's voice pulled her back. Jalisa. Jalisa Monroe. Jalisa. Victoria tested the name, nodded. Beautiful. You're a photographer. You met Orlando at a gallery opening 6 months ago. You've been seeing each other quietly because he values privacy. Got it. This is insane. This is survival. Victoria's hand found Jalisa's again, and this time the touch was gentle. Almost motherly. Please. Jalisa thought about her apartment, the eviction notice taped to the door. She thought about her father's grave, still without a headstone because she couldn't afford one. She thought about the bone-deep exhaustion of being 26 and feeling 50, of working 3 jobs and still falling behind, of being invisible in a world that only saw you when it wanted something. $50,000. 3 hours. If he says no, I'm out. He won't say no. Victoria's smile was sharp. He's my son. He'll do what needs to be done. Jalisa took a breath, adjusted her dress, and started walking. The ballroom seemed to stretch as she crossed it, every step taking her further from the exit and deeper into something she didn't understand. People moved around her, conversations flowing like water, and she felt suddenly, acutely aware of every difference between her and them. Her drugstore makeup. Her second-hand dress. The calluses on her hands from carrying equipment and working double shifts at the diner. She didn't belong here. But $50,000 bought a lot of belonging. Orlando didn't notice her until she was right beside him. He was staring into his drink like it contained the answers to life's great mysteries, or at least an escape route from this party. Orlando Santino? Jalisa kept her voice low, intimate, the way someone who loved him might sound. He looked up, and Jalisa felt something shift in her chest. His eyes were dark, almost black in the ballroom lighting, and they held the same desperate quality she'd seen in his mother's. But there was something else there too. Something that looked like loneliness so profound it had become part of him. I'm sorry, do I know you? His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it much tonight. Not yet. Jalisa smiled, the kind of smile that said they were sharing a secret. Your mother sent me. She needs you to play along. Can you do that? Something flickered across Orlando's face. Confusion, then understanding, then horror. Oh God. What did she do? Hired a fake fiancé for the evening. Jalisa kept smiling, aware that people were watching now. She could feel eyes on them, assessing. So if you could look slightly less like you want to die, that would really help sell this. Orlando's jaw tightened. He glanced past her, and Jalisa knew he'd found his mother in the crowd. When he looked back at Jalisa, something in his expression had shifted. Not quite resignation. More like a soldier accepting his orders. What's your name? Jalisa Monroe. How much is she paying you? More than you could possibly understand. Orlando laughed, a sharp bark of sound that made several nearby guests turn. Trust me, I understand. He set his glass down, ran a hand through his hair, and Jalisa saw his fingers tremble slightly. Okay. How do we do this? You could start by looking at me like you don't hate everything about this situation. I'm not good at pretending. Then think of it as survival. Your mother said families are watching. His face went still. She told you about. Enough. Jalisa stepped closer, into his personal space, and lowered her voice even further. I don't need details. I need you to put your hand on my waist, smile, and act like I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. Can you manage that? For a moment, Orlando just stared at her. Then, slowly, carefully, his hand settled on her waist. His palm was warm through the thin fabric of her dress. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, like he was afraid she might shatter. Like this. His voice had dropped, matching her intimacy. Exactly like that. Jalisa let herself lean into him slightly, her hand coming up to rest on his chest. Under her palm, she could feel his heart racing. Now smile. Make it real. I don't know if I remember how. The confession was so honest, so raw, that Jalisa almost forgot this was an act. She looked up at him, really looked, and saw past the expensive suit and the family name to the man underneath. Young. Maybe 30, maybe younger. Exhausted. Trapped. She knew that feeling. Then fake it, she said softly. Just for tonight. We're both faking it. Something in Orlando's expression cracked. Not quite a smile, but close. His hand tightened slightly on her waist. You're good at this. I've had practice being someone I'm not. Yeah. Orlando's voice was barely audible now. Me too. The moment hung between them, real in a way that made Jalisa's carefully constructed walls tremble. Then music swelled, a waltz rising from the string quartet, and Orlando's eyes widened slightly. Do you know how to? I have no idea. Jalisa grinned, and this time it was genuine. But I'm a fast learner. Orlando's hand slid from her waist to her lower back, his other hand capturing hers. Then follow my lead. Try not to step on my feet. No promises. He led her onto the dance floor, and Jalisa discovered that Orlando Santino, anxious Mafia son, moved like water. Smooth, confident, his body knowing the steps even if his mind was clearly somewhere else. She stumbled once, twice, and each time his grip steadied her. You're doing fine, he murmured. I'm destroying your shoes. They're expensive. They can take it. Must be nice. Orlando's eyes met hers, and she saw understanding there. Must be. They moved in silence for a moment, and Jalisa became aware of how many people were watching them. Older couples, evaluating. Younger ones, curious. And along the edges of the ballroom, men in suits who stood a little too still, who watched with eyes that missed nothing. Security. Or something like it. Your mother wasn't exaggerating about the families, Jalisa said quietly. She never does. Orlando guided her through a turn, and Jalisa felt suddenly, absurdly grateful for YouTube videos she'd watched at 3 in the morning when she couldn't sleep. At least she knew the basic steps. The Ross Ellis especially. They've been waiting for an excuse to move into our territory for years. And me being here helps how? It makes me look stable. Committed. Like I'm thinking about the future, building something. His voice carried a bitter edge. Families respect marriage. Engagement. It means you're serious about legacy. Even if it's fake. Especially if it's fake. Orlando's hand pressed against her spine, guiding her closer. To anyone watching, it would look romantic. Jalisa knew it was strategic. In this world, Everything is performance. You just happened to walk into mine. Your mother grabbed me. That sounds like her. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She's protective. Sometimes too protective. She loves you. She loves what I represent. The bitterness was sharper now. The Santino name. The family legacy. The business. Maybe she loves you for you. Orlando's steps faltered slightly. He recovered quickly, but Jalisa felt the momentary break in his composure. You don't know anything about my family. I know your mother looked terrified when she grabbed me. Real terror. The kind you can't fake. Everyone's afraid in this world. Fear is currency. That's a horrible way to live. It's the only way I know. The music swelled toward a crescendo, and Orlando spun her out, then back into his arms. When she collided with his chest, his arms came around her, steadying, and for a second they were pressed together, breathing the same air. Jalisa's heart stuttered. Not from the dance. From something else entirely. Orlando seemed to feel it too. His eyes widened slightly, his grip tightening. Are you okay? Fine. Jalisa pulled back, putting distance between them. Just not used to the heels. Right. Heels. The music ended. Around them, couples broke apart, applause rippling through the ballroom. Jalisa stepped out of Orlando's arms, suddenly aware of how warm his hands had been, how steady. Jalisa. Orlando caught her wrist gently, stopping her. Thank you. For doing this. I know it's. Orlando. The voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. Sharp. Female. Amused in a way that felt dangerous. Jalisa turned and found herself facing a woman who looked like she'd been designed to destroy confidence. Mid-40s, elegant in the way that came from generations of wealth and power. Her dress was blood-red, her smile sharper. Mrs. Rosselli. Orlando's voice went flat. Professional. Happy New Year. And to you. Mrs. Rosselli's eyes slid to Jalisa, assessing in a way that made Jalisa feel like an insect under a microscope. And who is this lovely creature? My fiancé. The word came out smooth, practiced. Orlando's hand found Jalisa's, their fingers intertwining. Jalisa Monroe. Jalisa, this is Teresa Rosselli. Fiancé. Teresa's smile didn't waver, but something cold moved behind her eyes. How wonderful. I hadn't heard. We've been keeping it quiet. Clearly. Teresa stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming. Expensive. Suffocating. Tell me, dear, how did you meet Orlando? I do love a good romance story. This was a test. Jalisa knew it instantly. One wrong word, one inconsistency, and Victoria's careful plan would collapse. At a gallery opening. Jalisa kept her voice steady, remembering Victoria's brief. 6 months ago. I'm a photographer. How charming. Teresa's eyes glittered. And you fell for our Orlando despite his rather intense family connections? I fell for him because of who he is, not what his last name is. How refreshingly naive. Teresa's laugh was crystalline. Sharp enough to cut. Orlando, your mother must be thrilled. She's been so worried about your future prospects. Orlando's hand tightened on Jalisa's. My mother is always worried. It's her default state. As any good mother should be. Teresa's gaze returned to Jalisa. Tell me, dear, have you set a date? Jalisa's mind raced. Too soon would be suspicious. Too far would suggest uncertainty. Spring, she said finally. We're thinking April. April. Teresa nodded slowly. How lovely. That gives us all something to look forward to. She leaned in closer, and Jalisa smelled gin beneath the perfume. A word of advice, dear. In this world, engagements are promises. And broken promises have consequences. I do hope yours is sincere. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. It's sincere, Orlando said, his voice carrying an edge Jalisa hadn't heard before. Protective. Is there anything else, Mrs. Rosselli? Just my best wishes. Teresa's smile was all teeth. Do enjoy your evening, lovebirds. She glided away, and Jalisa felt Orlando's tension release in a long exhale. Well, he said quietly. That was fun. She doesn't believe us. She doesn't believe anything. Orlando guided her toward the edge of the ballroom, away from the crowd. But she'll watch now. They all will. How many more Rossellis are there? Dozens. And Marcellos. And Costas. And half a dozen smaller families, all looking for weakness. Orlando stopped near a set of glass doors leading to a balcony. This is what my mother was afraid of. The vultures are circling. So we convinced one of them. That's something. We convinced her to investigate. Orlando's jaw tightened. By tomorrow, she'll have people looking into you. Your background. Your family. Everything. Jalisa's stomach dropped. What will they find? The truth, probably. That you're a photographer from Detroit with debt up to your eyeballs and no connection to any family in this world. And then this becomes more complicated. Orlando met her eyes, and Jalisa saw something shift in his expression. Concern. Real concern. I'm sorry. I should have said no when I figured out what my mother had done. But I panicked. And now you're in this too. I chose to walk over here. For money. Yes. For money. Jalisa lifted her chin. Don't apologize for that. I knew what I was doing. Did you? Orlando's voice was soft. Because I don't think either of us knew what we were doing. We just did it. He was right. Jalisa had walked across that ballroom on instinct, on desperation, on the wild hope that $50,000 could fix the broken pieces of her life. She hadn't thought about consequences. About mafia families and their investigations. About what happened when fairy tales collided with reality. So what do we do now? She asked. Orlando was quiet for a moment. Then he opened the glass door, cold air rushing in. We go outside. We talk. We figure out how deep this hole is before we keep digging. Jalisa followed him onto the balcony, and the New York winter hit her like a wall. She hadn't grabbed her coat. Hadn't thought she'd need it. Her arms broke out in goosebumps immediately. Orlando shrugged out of his jacket without a word and draped it over her shoulders. It smelled like expensive cologne and something else. Something that might have been cedar, or maybe just old money. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Orlando leaned against the balcony railing, staring out at the glittering city below. If we're supposed to be engaged, I should act like I care whether you freeze to death. How romantic. I'm not good at romance. He said it matter-of-factly, like stating a basic truth. Never have been. My mother despairs. She seems more concerned with family alliances than your love life. In this world, they're the same thing. Orlando glanced at her. Love is leverage. Romance is strategy. Feelings are weaknesses to be exploited. That's depressing. That's reality. Jalisa pulled his jacket tighter around herself. Below them, the city sparkled, oblivious to the drama playing out 100 feet above. Is that why you're not married? Because you can't separate love from business? I'm not married because I'm a disaster. Orlando's laugh was hollow. I panic in social situations. I can't make small talk. I overthink everything. I'm 30 years old and I still don't know how to be the man my family needs me to be. The honesty in his voice made Jalisa's chest ache. Your mother said they'd destroy you if you seemed weak. They'd try. Orlando's hands gripped the railing. My father built this family from nothing. Fought for every inch of territory, every ounce of respect. And I'm supposed to maintain that. Except I don't have his charisma. His ruthlessness. His ability to look someone in the eye and make them believe anything he says. Maybe that's not a bad thing. In this world, it's fatal. Jalisa studied his profile in the dim light. Strong features. Good bone structure. But it was the vulnerability in his expression that caught her. The raw admission that he was playing a role he'd never wanted. She knew that feeling too. I don't belong in your world, she said quietly. Your mother grabbed the wrong person. Maybe. Orlando turned to face her fully. Or maybe she grabbed exactly the right person. Someone who doesn't know the rules. Who doesn't have decades of family history weighing on every word. Who can just be. I'm pretending to be your fiancé for money. That's not exactly authentic. No. Orlando's smile was sad. But in the last 15 minutes, you've been more real with me than anyone has been in years. So maybe pretending is its own kind of truth. The words hung between them, and Jalisa felt something shift. Some invisible line being crossed. She'd come here for money, for survival. But standing on this balcony with a lonely mafia son who couldn't fake emotions to save his life, she felt something else stirring. Empathy. Recognition. Maybe something more dangerous. We should go back inside, she said finally. Before someone notices we're gone. Or we could stay out here and freeze to death. Save everyone the trouble. Your mother would kill us both. True. Orlando pushed off the railing. She's terrifying when she's disappointed. They returned to the warmth of the ballroom, and Jalisa immediately felt the shift in atmosphere. More people were watching now. Whispering. The news had spread. Orlando Santino, confirmed bachelor, was engaged. To a nobody. A photographer. A girl with no family connections and no obvious value except the ring that wasn't even on her finger yet. Victoria appeared at Jalisa's elbow like a ghost, her smile bright and utterly fake. Darling, I've been looking everywhere for you too. Come, there are people you simply must meet. Before Jalisa could protest, Victoria had her arm linked through Jalisa's and was steering them through the crowd. Orlando followed, his expression carefully neutral. The Costas are near the champagne fountain, Victoria murmured. They're the most important introduction tonight. Smile. Look happy. Pretend you're madly in love. Mrs. Santino. Victoria, please. We're family now. Victoria's grip tightened. And family protects each other. Remember that. They approached a cluster of people near the fountain, and Jalisa recognized the body language immediately. Power. These were people used to being obeyed, used to getting what they wanted. Men in perfectly tailored suits. Women dripping in jewels. And at the center, a silver-haired man who looked like he could order someone's death with a smile. Antonio. Victoria's voice rang with false cheer. Happy New Year. Antonio Costa turned, his eyes shrewd and assessing. Victoria. Always a pleasure. His gaze slid to Orlando, then to Jalisa. And you've brought company. My son Orlando, and his fiancée Jalisa Monroe. Victoria performed the introductions with the smoothness of long practice. Jalisa, Antonio Costa and his lovely wife Elena. Fiancé. Antonio's smile didn't reach his eyes. Congratulations. I hadn't realized Orlando was seeing anyone. We've been private about it, Orlando said, his hand finding Jalisa's again. Jalisa values her privacy. How unusual in this day and age. Elena Costa, an elegant woman who looked like she could cut glass with her cheekbones, studied Jalisa with open curiosity. Tell me, dear, what do your parents think of all this? The question was a landmine. Jalisa felt it instantly. My mother passed when I was young, she said carefully. My father died recently. Cancer. I'm so sorry. Elena's expression softened fractionally. That must be very difficult. It was. Jalisa forced herself to meet Elena's eyes. But Orlando has been incredibly supportive. He's been my rock. The lie tasted bitter, but she sold it. She'd learned how to perform emotions she didn't feel. Every service job taught you that. How did you meet? Antonio's question came sharp, probing. Gallery opening. Orlando jumped in smoothly. Jalisa is a photographer. Her work is extraordinary. A photographer. Antonio nodded slowly. How creative. And you're from? Detroit. The word landed like a confession. Detroit. Not Manhattan. Not Boston. Not anywhere that mattered in this world of old money and older grudges. Motor City. Antonio's smile was condescending. I have business interests there. Perhaps you know some of my associates. I doubt it. Jalisa kept her voice level. I mostly photograph events. Weddings. Corporate functions. Ah. Antonio exchanged a glance with his wife. Well. It's lovely to meet you, my dear. I'm sure you and Orlando will be very happy together. The dismissal was clear. Jalisa was nobody. A temporary amusement. Not worth his time or concern. Victoria guided them away, her smile fixed. That went well. They think I'm lying, Jalisa said quietly. They think everyone is lying. That's how they survive. Victoria stopped near a quiet corner, her expression turning serious. But you did well. Better than I expected. Elena likes you. She pitied me. Pity is useful. Victoria glanced at Orlando. You two need to be more convincing. Touch more. Look at each other like you're sharing secrets. This has to be real. It's not real, Mother. Orlando's voice was tight. It's never going to be real. Then make it look real. Victoria's eyes flashed. Or we lose everything. She swept away, leaving Jalisa and Orlando alone in their fake bubble. I need a drink, Orlando muttered. Make it two. They made their way back to the bar, and this time Orlando ordered them both whiskey. Expensive, smooth, and strong enough to burn. Jalisa downed hers in one swallow, feeling the heat spread through her chest. Slow down, Orlando said, but he was smiling slightly. The night's not over yet. How much longer? Orlando checked his watch. 2 hours until midnight. Then another hour of schmoozing. Then you're free. And $50,000 richer. About that. Orlando set his glass down, his expression turning serious. My mother promised you that. Yes. She doesn't have access to that kind of cash. Not without my father's permission. Jalisa's stomach sank. Are you saying she lied? I'm saying she promised something she can't deliver alone. Orlando met her eyes. But I can. If you see this through. If you help me survive tonight without my family imploding. I'll make sure you get every penny. Why would you do that? Because you're risking something for us. And because Orlando paused, choosing his words carefully. Because you're the first person in years who's looked at me like I'm human. Not a business asset. Not a family liability. Just human. The confession was so raw, so honest, that Jalisa felt her careful walls cracking. You don't know me. No. Orlando's smile was sad. But I know what it's like to pretend you're someone you're not. And I'm guessing you do too. He was right. Of course he was right. Jalisa had been performing her entire life. The good daughter. The responsible one. The girl who could handle anything because she had to. She'd smiled through her father's illness, worked 3 jobs while watching him die, buried him without crying because someone had to keep it together. Standing here in a designer dress she didn't own, wearing a Mafia son's jacket, pretending to be engaged to a man she'd met an hour ago, Jalisa realized she was tired. So desperately tired of pretending. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Me too. What if they figure it out? What if the Rossellis or the Costas or whoever digs into my background and realizes I'm nobody? Then we deal with it. Orlando's hand covered hers on the bar. Together. That's what partners do, right? Is that what we are now? Partners. For tonight. His fingers squeezed gently. Maybe longer if we don't completely screw this up. Before Jalisa could respond, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage at the far end of the ballroom, and a man in a tuxedo stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced. We're now 1 hour from midnight. Let us raise our glasses to family, to legacy, and to the year ahead. Glasses lifted across the ballroom. Jalisa grabbed hers, and Orlando did the same. To survival, Orlando murmured, just for her. To $50,000, Jalisa whispered back. They clinked glasses, and Jalisa felt the moment crystallize. She was in too deep now. No turning back. Whatever happened next, she'd chosen this path. The music started again, slower this time. A jazz singer took the stage, her voice smoky and intimate. Couples drifted onto the dance floor, and Orlando extended his hand. One more dance, he asked. For the audience. Jalisa took his hand, let him pull her close. This time, she knew the steps. This time, she let herself relax into his arms, matching his rhythm. You're getting good at this, Orlando said. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not. You're adaptable. I admire that. Adaptable is just another word for desperate. Maybe. Orlando guided her through a turn. Or maybe it means you're stronger than you think. They moved in silence, and Jalisa became aware of how perfectly they fit together. Her hand in his arm around her waist. The steady rhythm of their breathing syncing up. It should have felt awkward, dancing with a stranger. But it didn't. It felt right. Dangerous thought. Jalisa. Orlando's voice pulled her back. Can I ask you something? Sure. When this is over, when you have your money and you're back to your real life, will you remember tonight? The question caught her off guard. Why would I want to remember this? Because I will. Orlando's eyes were dark, serious. I'll remember the girl who saved me from my own disaster. Who pretended to love me even though she had every reason to run. Who made me feel, for a few hours, like I wasn't completely alone. Jalisa's throat tightened. Orlando. I know it's not real. I know you're doing this for money. But it felt real. Dancing with you. Talking with you. It felt like something real, and I haven't felt that in so long I'd forgotten what it was like. The words should have made her uncomfortable. Should have reminded her this was a transaction, nothing more. But instead, they made her heart ache. I'll remember, she said softly. Tonight. You. All of it. Orlando's arms tightened around her, and they danced through the end of the song without speaking. When the music faded, when the spell broke, they stood on the dance floor holding each other while the world moved around them. Then a voice shattered the moment. Orlando Santino. They turned as one and found themselves facing a man who radiated danger. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running down his left cheek. He wore his tuxedo like armor, and his smile was all predator. Marcus Rosselli. Orlando's voice went flat. Happy New Year. Indeed. Marcus's eyes slid to Jalisa, lingering in a way that made her skin crawl. And this must be the mysterious fiancé we've all been hearing about. Jalisa Monroe. She extended her hand, forcing herself to meet his gaze. Nice to meet you. Marcus took her hand, but instead of shaking it, he raised it to his lips. The kiss was performative, theatrical, and entirely too long. When he finally released her, Jalisa had to resist the urge to wipe her hand on her dress. Charming. Marcus's smile widened. Tell me, Miss Monroe, how does a photographer from Detroit end up engaged to one of the most eligible bachelors in our community? Love doesn't follow logic, Jalisa said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. No, it doesn't. Marcus stepped closer, invading her space. But it does follow patterns. And the pattern here is very interesting. 6 months of secret dating. No public appearances. No social media presence. It's almost like you didn't exist until tonight. I value my privacy. Or you have something to hide. Marcus. Orlando's voice carried a warning edge. Is there a point to this conversation? Just curiosity. Marcus's eyes never left Jalisa. My mother mentioned she spoke with you earlier. She found you refreshing. But refreshing doesn't always mean genuine. Are you calling me a liar? Jalisa kept her tone light, but she felt Orlando tense beside her. I'm calling you an unknown variable. Marcus finally looked at Orlando. And in our world, unknown variables are dangerous. They disrupt carefully balanced ecosystems. They cause problems. The only problem here is your family's inability to mind their own business, Orlando said coldly. Your family is our business. Has been for 50 years. Marcus's smile turned sharp. When the Santinos sneeze, we all catch cold. So when Orlando suddenly produces a fiancé out of thin air, we pay attention. Noted. Orlando's hand found Jalisa's, threading their fingers together. Now if you'll excuse us. One more thing. Marcus pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and showed them an image. This is you, isn't it, Miss Monroe? Jalisa's blood went cold. The photo showed her from 3 weeks ago, standing outside her apartment building in Detroit. Worn jeans. Oversized sweatshirt. Camera bag slung over her shoulder. She looked exhausted, defeated, nothing like the polished woman standing in this ballroom. Where did you get that? Orlando's voice was dangerous now. I have resources. Marcus pocketed his phone. The question is, why does Orlando Santino's fiancée look like she's one bad day away from homelessness? Where's the engagement ring? The designer wardrobe? The evidence of 6 months of dating a millionaire? Jalisa felt panic rising but forced it down. Think. Adapt. Survive. Because I won't let him buy me, she said, lifting her chin. I have my own career, my own life. Orlando respects that. If you don't understand how a relationship can exist without financial transactions, maybe that says more about you than it does about us. The hit landed. Marcus's smile flickered. Interesting. He stepped back, his eyes calculating. Well, I look forward to seeing how this all plays out. Enjoy your evening, lovebirds. He disappeared into the crowd, and Jalisa felt her legs go weak. Orlando's arm came around her waist, steadying her. Breathe, he murmured. Just breathe. He knows. They all know. They suspect. That's different. Orlando guided her toward the balcony doors again. We need to talk. Now. They stepped outside, and this time the cold was almost welcome. Jalisa gulped air, trying to calm her racing heart. Orlando stood beside her, his jaw tight. This is bad, he said finally. If the Rossellis are investigating you, they'll find everything. Your father's medical debt. Your eviction notice. The fact that you're working 3 jobs just to survive. And then what? Then they'll know this is fake. And they'll use it against my family. Orlando ran his hands through his hair, destroying its careful styling. God, what was my mother thinking? This was insane from the start. So what do? We have options. Orlando turned to face her. Option 1, we come clean right now. I announce this was a misunderstanding, pay you for your time, and you leave. My family takes the hit. We survive it somehow. And option 2? We commit. Orlando's eyes locked on hers. Fully. We make this so real that even the Rossellis can't find holes. You move to New York. We're seen together constantly. You become part of this world, part of my life, and we maintain the lie until it doesn't matter anymore. That's insane. I know. That would take months. Maybe years. I know. I'd have to give up everything. My apartment, my jobs, my entire life. I know. Orlando stepped closer. But I'd pay you. Not just 50,000. More. A monthly salary. Housing. Everything you need. You'd be compensated for your time, your trouble, your sacrifice. Jalisa stared at him. You're seriously suggesting I become your fake fiancé full-time? I'm suggesting we turn a disaster into an opportunity. Orlando's voice was urgent now. You need money. I need stability. We can help each other. And maybe we can figure out how to make it work. This is crazy. Everything about tonight is crazy. Orlando's hand found hers again. But you're here. You stayed. You danced with me, talked with me, defended me to Marcus Rosselli without hesitation. That's not nothing. That's survival instinct. Or it's chemistry. Orlando's thumb brushed across her knuckles. I felt it when we danced. I think you did too. Jalisa wanted to deny it. Wanted to laugh and call him ridiculous and walk away from this golden cage before it locked completely. But he was right. She had felt something. Connection. Recognition. A pull she didn't understand and couldn't explain. I don't know you, she said weakly. Then get to know me. Take the time. See if this could actually work. As a fake relationship. As whatever it needs to be. Orlando's eyes were intense, desperate. Please, Jalisa. I know it's asking too much. But I'm asking anyway. Before Jalisa could answer, the balcony door burst open. Victoria stood there, her face pale, her careful composure shattered. We have a problem, she said. Teresa Rosselli is making an announcement. About you too. Right now. They rushed back inside, and Jalisa immediately saw the commotion. Teresa stood on the stage, microphone in hand, her smile vicious. And so I'd like to raise a toast, Teresa was saying, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. To young love. To Orlando Santino and his mysterious fiancée Jalisa Monroe. May their engagement be as real as it appears. The emphasis on real was unmistakable. Around the room, people shifted uncomfortably. Whispers erupted. Jalisa felt hundreds of eyes land on them. This was it. The moment everything collapsed. She's calling us out, Orlando muttered. In front of everyone. What do? We fight back. Orlando's hand squeezed hers. Trust me. Please. Before Jalisa could respond, Orlando was moving. He strode through the crowd toward the stage, pulling her along, his face set with determination. People parted for them, and Jalisa felt her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. Orlando climbed onto the stage, took the microphone from a surprised Teresa, and pulled Jalisa up beside him. Thank you, Mrs. Rosselli, for that spirited toast. Orlando's voice rang clear, confident. Nothing like the anxious man she'd met at the bar. And you're right. This engagement is sudden. Unexpected. But it's also the best thing that's ever happened to me. He turned to Jalisa, and the look in his eyes stopped her breath. I've spent my entire life being what everyone else needed me to be, Orlando continued. The dutiful son. The family representative. The heir to a legacy I never asked for. And I was drowning in it. Every day, a little more. Until 6 months ago, when I walked into a gallery and saw a woman photographing light like she could capture hope itself. Jalisa's eyes widened. He was improvising. Making up a story on the spot. And it was working. She could see it in the faces around them, the softening of skepticism into curiosity. She didn't know who I was, Orlando said. Didn't care about my last name or my family connections. She just saw me. The real me. The man underneath all the expectations. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. His hand came up, cupping her face with such gentleness that Jalisa forgot for a moment this was an act. I love you, Orlando said, his voice dropping to something intimate, something that felt impossibly private despite the hundreds watching. I love your strength, your resilience, your refusal to be anything other than exactly who you are. And if that makes me weak in the eyes of this world, then I'm weak. But I'd rather be weak with you than strong alone. The ballroom was silent. Waiting. Jalisa knew what she had to do. I love you too, she whispered, and the microphone caught it, carried it across the room. You're the best man I've ever known. Orlando smiled, real and radiant, and then he kissed her. It was supposed to be for show. A performance for the crowd. But the moment his lips touched hers, something shifted. The kiss deepened, became real, and Jalisa felt herself melting into it. His hand slid into her hair. Her arms wrapped around his neck. And for those few seconds, nothing else existed. When they finally broke apart, the ballroom erupted in applause. Teresa Rosselli looked like she'd swallowed glass. Orlando kept his arm around Jalisa's waist as they descended from the stage, and she felt like she was floating. People surrounded them, offering congratulations, and Jalisa smiled and nodded and played her part while her mind spun. That kiss had felt real. Victoria materialized beside them, her eyes shining with tears. That was perfect, she breathed. Absolutely perfect. We need to talk, Orlando said quietly. Family meeting. Now. Victoria's expression shifted to concern, but she nodded. The private lounge. 10 minutes. She disappeared, and Orlando guided Jalisa through the crowd toward a side door. They slipped through into a quiet hallway, and finally, Jalisa could breathe. What the hell was that? She demanded. Survival. Orlando leaned against the wall, his earlier confidence evaporating. Teresa was trying to humiliate us. I had to shut it down. By declaring your love for me in front of everyone. By making it impossible for anyone to question us without looking petty. Orlando met her eyes. I'm sorry. I should have warned you about the kiss. You should have warned me about the entire speech. I was improvising. Well, you're good at it. Jalisa touched her lips, still feeling the ghost of his kiss. That was convincing. Was it? Orlando's voice was quiet. Because it didn't feel like acting to me. The confession hung between them, dangerous and electric. Orlando. I know. This is fake. You're here for money. I get it. He pushed off the wall, started pacing. But that moment on stage, when I was talking about you, about us, it felt real. And that kiss definitely felt real. It was adrenaline. Maybe. Orlando stopped pacing, faced her. Or maybe we're better at this than we thought. Maybe pretending is just another word for possibility. You're romanticizing a transaction. Maybe I am. Orlando stepped closer. Or maybe I'm tired of living in a world where everything is calculated, where every emotion is strategic. Maybe I want something real, even if it started fake. Jalisa's heart was racing. She wanted to step back, create distance, remind them both why this was impossible. But her feet wouldn't move. We barely know each other, she said. Then let's change that. Orlando's hand came up, not touching her, just hovering near her cheek. Give me a chance. Give us a chance. Not fake. Real. Your family. I don't care about my family right now. Orlando's voice was fierce. I care about you. About this. About the fact that for the first time in years, I feel something other than obligation. That's not love. That's relief. Call it whatever you want. Orlando's eyes burned into hers. It's more than I had yesterday. Jalisa opened her mouth to respond when the door burst open. A young man stood there, maybe 25, wearing a server's uniform. His eyes were wide with panic. Mr. Santino, he gasped. You need to come quick. There's a situation in the main ballroom. The Marcellos and the Rossellis, they're arguing. It's getting heated. Orlando's expression transformed instantly, the vulnerable man disappearing behind a mask of control. Show me. They followed the server back into the ballroom, and Jalisa immediately saw the problem. Two groups of men faced off near the champagne fountain, their body language aggressive. Raised voices. Pointed fingers. The kind of confrontation that could turn violent with one wrong word. Victoria was there, trying to mediate, but she looked overwhelmed. Stay here, Orlando told Jalisa. Orlando. But he was already moving, striding into the center of the conflict with the kind of authority Jalisa hadn't known he possessed. Gentlemen. Orlando's voice cut through the argument like a blade. This is a celebration, not a war council. Whatever grievances you have, they can wait until tomorrow. Stay out of this, Santino, one of the Marcello men snarled. This doesn't concern you. Everything that happens in this ballroom concerns me. It's my family's event. Orlando positioned himself between the two groups, physically blocking them from each other. So you can either settle down, or you can leave. Your choice. You threatening us? A Rosselli man stepped forward, his hand moving toward his jacket. And just like that, Jalisa understood. This wasn't about arguments. This was about guns. Her body moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the ballroom in seconds, positioned herself next to Orlando, her hand finding his. Let's not ruin a beautiful evening, she said, her voice carrying across the tense silence. Orlando and I just got engaged. We'd really appreciate it if our celebration didn't end in bloodshed. The Rosselli man blinked, surprised by her intervention. Miss Monroe. It's almost midnight, Jalisa continued, squeezing Orlando's hand. And I'd really like to kiss my fiancé when the clock strikes 12 without anyone bleeding on the marble. Can we make that happen? The absurdity of it, the sheer audacity of a nobody photographer from Detroit lecturing mafia soldiers, seemed to break the tension. Someone laughed. Then someone else. And slowly, the men stepped back. Fine, the Marcello man muttered. Out of respect for the lady. They dispersed, and Jalisa felt her legs turn to water. Orlando caught her, his arm around her waist. You're insane, he breathed. That was the most reckless thing I've ever seen. I thought they were going to shoot you. They might have. Orlando's eyes were wide, almost awed. And you just walked into the middle of it. I wasn't thinking. No, you were feeling. Orlando's grip tightened. You were protecting me. Why? Jalisa didn't have an answer. Or maybe she did, and it terrified her too much to say it out loud. The countdown clock began chiming. 11:55. 5 minutes to midnight. We should get ready, Orlando said quietly. Everyone will be watching when the clock strikes 12. Expecting us to kiss again. Expecting us to prove it's real. Orlando's thumb brushed across her cheek. Can you do that? One more time? Jalisa thought about everything that had happened tonight. The desperation in Victoria's eyes. The challenge in Teresa Rosselli's smile. The vulnerability in Orlando's voice when he'd asked her to make this real. The way her heart had stuttered when they'd kissed on stage. This was supposed to be simple. Money for 3 hours of pretending. But nothing about tonight had been simple. Yes, she said. I can do that. They moved to the center of the ballroom as the countdown began. The crowd gathered around them, glasses raised. Jalisa could see Victoria near the back, her expression hopeful. Teresa Rosselli watching with narrow eyes. Marcus Rosselli with his calculating smile. Antonio and Elena Costa. The Mosellos. Dozens of other families, all waiting to see if the Santino heir and his nobody fiancée could pull off one more miracle. 10, 9, 8. Orlando turned to face her fully, his hands settling on her waist. 7, 6, 5. Jalisa's hands came up to his shoulders, and she felt him trembling slightly. 4, 3, 2. Thank you, Orlando whispered. For tonight. For everything. 1. The ballroom erupted in cheers as midnight struck, and Orlando kissed her. This time, Jalisa was ready for it. The softness of his lips. The gentleness of his touch. The way he kissed like he was afraid she might disappear if he held on too tight. She kissed him back, pouring everything she couldn't say into it. The fear. The confusion. The unexpected tenderness growing in her chest. When they broke apart, fireworks exploded outside the windows. Gold and silver and blue, painting the sky with light. Happy New Year, Orlando murmured against her lips. Happy New Year, Jalisa whispered back. Around them, couples kissed and champagne flowed and the party continued. But in their small bubble, Orlando and Jalisa stood holding each other, and Jalisa realized something terrifying. She didn't want to leave at 1 a.m. She didn't want to take her money and disappear back to Detroit and forget this ever happened. She wanted to stay. The next hour passed in a blur. More congratulations. More questions about wedding plans. More careful navigation of family politics while Jalisa tried to process her own feelings. Finally, at 1:30, Victoria found them. You can leave now, she said quietly. You've done more than enough. The families are satisfied. For tonight, at least. What happens tomorrow? Jalisa asked. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. Victoria glanced at Orlando. You two need to talk. Privately. About what this becomes. Orlando nodded. I'll drive you back to your hotel. I don't have a hotel, Jalisa admitted. I was supposed to catch the last bus to Detroit. At this hour? Orlando looked horrified. Absolutely not. You'll stay at my apartment. Guest room, he added quickly. No expectations. I can't let you get on a bus at 2 in the morning after everything tonight. Jalisa knew she should refuse. Knew she should maintain boundaries, protect herself. But exhaustion was crashing over her like a wave, and the thought of the long bus ride, the cold apartment, the reality waiting in Detroit felt impossible. Okay, she said. Thank you. They said their goodbyes to Victoria, who hugged Jalisa with surprising fierceness. You saved us tonight, Victoria whispered. I won't forget that. Then Orlando was guiding her through the now thinning crowd, out of the ballroom, into the cold January night. A car was waiting, sleek and expensive, and Jalisa slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire apartment's furniture combined. Orlando settled beside her, and the driver pulled away from the curb. They sat in silence for several blocks, both staring out their respective windows at the glittering city. I meant what I said on stage, Orlando said finally. About you being strong. Resilient. Real. You were improvising. Improvising doesn't mean lying. He turned to face her. Everything I said, I meant. Maybe I dressed it up in prettier language than I usually use, but the core of it was true. Jalisa met his eyes in the dim light of the car. We've known each other for 3 hours. Sometimes 3 hours can feel like 3 years. Orlando's smile was sad. Or maybe I'm just desperate to believe in something that isn't calculated. That isn't strategic. That's just honest. This started as a lie. I know. Orlando reached out, then stopped himself, his hand hovering between them. Can I ask you something? Sure. When you stepped into that fight earlier, when you positioned yourself between me and the Ross Ellis, what were you thinking? Jalisa remembered the moment. The surge of protective instinct that had overridden common sense. I thought they were going to hurt you. I couldn't let that happen. Why not? You barely know me. I'm just a job. You were supposed to be just a job. Jalisa's voice was quiet. But somewhere between the first dance and that kiss on stage, you became something else. What? I don't know yet. She met his eyes. Someone who matters. Someone I don't want to see hurt. Orlando's breath caught. Jalisa. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't say anything right now. We're both exhausted and emotional, and tonight was insane. We need to sleep. Process. Figure out what any of this actually means in daylight. Orlando nodded slowly. You're right. Of course you're right. He settled back in his seat, but his hand found hers in the darkness between them. But for the record, you matter to me too. A lot more than you should after 3 hours. They held hands in silence for the rest of the drive. Orlando's apartment was in a building that looked like it had been designed to intimidate. All glass and steel, and doormen who probably earned more than Jalisa did in a year. The elevator was mirrored, and Jalisa caught sight of herself and winced. Smudged makeup. Disheveled hair. Orlando's jacket still around her shoulders because she'd never taken it off. She looked like exactly what she was. A girl playing dress-up in a world she didn't belong to. Here. Orlando unlocked his door, and Jalisa stepped into a space that was somehow both luxurious and lonely. High ceilings. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Expensive furniture arranged in a way that suggested a decorator rather than a person who actually lived here. Guest room is this way. Orlando led her down a hallway, opened a door to reveal a bedroom bigger than Jalisa's entire Detroit apartment. Bathrooms through there. I'll find you something to sleep in. He disappeared, and Jalisa sank onto the bed, her body finally acknowledging how exhausted she was. Every muscle ached. Her feet throbbed. Her head spun with everything that had happened. Orlando returned with a t-shirt and sweatpants. These will be huge on you, but they're clean. Thank you. Jalisa took the clothes. Orlando, about tomorrow. Tomorrow we talk. Really talk. About what we want this to be. Orlando lingered in the doorway. But tonight, just rest. You're safe here. I promise. Why are you being so nice to me? Because you were nice to me first. His smile was gentle. Because you didn't have to walk across that ballroom, but you did. Because you defended me to the Ross Ellis and the Marcellos without hesitation. Because you matter. He closed the door before she could respond. Jalisa changed into Orlando's clothes, washed her face, and climbed into bed. The sheets were softer than anything she'd ever felt. The mattress seemed to cradle her perfectly. She should have fallen asleep immediately. Instead, she stared at the ceiling and replayed the entire night. Victoria's desperate plea. Orlando's awkward panic. That first dance. The balcony confessions. Marcus Rosselli's threats. The kiss on stage that had felt like lightning. The near violence she'd walked into without thinking. The second kiss at midnight that had felt like possibility. Somewhere in the past few hours, this had stopped being about money. And that terrified her. When Jalisa finally slept, she dreamed of dancing. Endless waltzing through a ballroom that never ended, held by a man whose face she couldn't quite see but whose arms felt like home. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came crashing back. The gala. The fake engagement. Orlando. Jalisa sat up, ran her hands through her tangled hair, and tried to figure out what happened next. A soft knock on the door. Jalisa. You awake? Yeah. Come in. Orlando entered carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He changed into jeans and a simple sweater, and without the tux, he looked younger. More approachable. Still impossibly handsome, but in a way that felt real rather than polished. I wasn't sure how you take it, he said, offering her a mug. So I made it strong and brought sugar and cream. Strong is perfect. Jalisa took the coffee, wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic. What time is it? Almost noon. I let you sleep. Figured you needed it. Orlando settled into a chair near the window. How are you feeling? Confused. Overwhelmed. Like last night was a fever dream. It was pretty surreal. Orlando sipped his coffee. I've been up since 7 trying to figure out what to say to you. Did you figure it out? Not really. He set his mug down. So I'm just going to be honest. Last night, I asked you to consider making this real. Not fake. Not just for my family's benefit. Actually real. I remember. I meant it. I still mean it. Orlando leaned forward. I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. But I haven't felt this alive, this present, this hopeful in years. And it's because of you. Jalisa's throat tightened. Orlando. Let me finish. Please. He took a breath. I'm not asking you to marry me for real. I'm asking you to give this a chance. Stay in New York for a while. Get to know me. Let me get to know you. We keep up the engagement publicly, but privately, we figure out if there's actually something here worth building on. And if there's not, then we part as friends, and I still pay you for your time. You lose nothing. But if there is something. Orlando's eyes were intense. If there is, maybe we build something real out of this fake foundation. What about your family? Your mother? My mother wants me to be happy. She thinks a wife will make me strong, give me legitimacy. Maybe she's right. But I'd rather find someone I actually care about than marry for convenience. You don't know if you care about me. I know I want to find out. Orlando stood, crossed to the bed, knelt beside it so they were eye level. 3 months. Stay for 3 months. Let me show you New York. Let me take you to dinner, real dates, not performative ones. Let us see if this chemistry we felt last night translates to actual compatibility. And if the families figure it out. If the Rossellis prove it's fake. Then we deal with it together. Orlando's hand covered hers. But I don't think they will. Not if we commit. Not if we make every public moment real by making our private moments real too. Jalisa wanted to say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was ridiculous, that you didn't build relationships on lies and desperation. But her heart, her stupid, hopeful heart, remembered how it felt to dance with him. To kiss him. To stand beside him while he defended her to his mother and his world. What would this look like practically, she asked. You move into this apartment. Different bedroom, obviously. We're seen together regularly. Gallery openings, dinners, family events. I pay you a monthly salary, enough that you're not worried about money. You can keep photographing if you want. Or you can explore other interests. Whatever makes you happy. You'd pay me to date you. I'd compensate you for uprooting your life to give me a chance. Orlando squeezed her hand gently. This isn't transactional. It's, I don't know what it is. An experiment. A possibility. A really weird way to start a relationship. It's insane. Completely. Orlando smiled. So is that a yes? Jalisa thought about Detroit. Her empty apartment. Her father's grave she couldn't afford to mark properly. The 3 jobs that barely kept her afloat. The endless, grinding exhaustion of surviving but never actually living. Then she thought about last night. The way Orlando had looked at her like she was magic. The way she'd felt real for the first time in years. The possibility of something more than just survival. 3 months, she said. And we do this right. Real dates. Real conversations. Real honesty. If I'm going to give this a chance, I need to know the real you, not the performance. Deal. Orlando's smile was radiant. Thank you. For taking a chance on this. On me. Don't make me regret it. I'll do my best. Orlando stood. So, first order of business. Breakfast. I make terrible pancakes, but I'm willing to try. You cook. Badly. But enthusiastically. Orlando offered his hand. Come on. Let me attempt to feed you before we figure out the logistics of uprooting your entire life. Jalisa took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. As they walked to the kitchen together, still holding hands, she felt something settle in her chest. Not certainty. Not security. But something that felt dangerously close to hope. Maybe this was insane. Maybe she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But standing in a sunlit kitchen while Orlando burned pancakes and laughed at his own incompetence, Jalisa thought that maybe, just maybe, some mistakes were worth making. 6 months later. The gallery was packed, and Jalisa moved through the crowd with practiced ease. Her photographs lined the walls, black and white images of New York that captured the city's hidden beauty. A homeless man sleeping under newspapers, the morning light gilding him like gold. 2 kids playing in a fountain, joy frozen in perfect clarity. The subway at rush hour, 1,000 stories compressed into one frame. These are extraordinary. Jalisa turned and found Elena Costa studying one of her photographs. The older woman smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. Thank you, Mrs. Costa. Elena, please. We're practically family now. Elena's eyes twinkled. I heard congratulations are in order. The wedding is next month. April 20th. Jalisa couldn't help her smile. Small ceremony. Just close friends and family. As it should be. Elena squeezed her arm gently. I'm glad Orlando found you. He's changed since you came into his life. Softer. Happier. He's changed me too. It was true. The past 6 months had transformed Jalisa in ways she was still processing. Orlando had kept his promise. Real dates. Real conversations. Real moments of vulnerability where they'd both peeled back their carefully constructed armor and shown each other the bruised, beautiful truth underneath. She'd learned that he played piano when he couldn't sleep. That he had panic attacks before big family meetings. That he dreamed of opening a non-profit for at-risk youth but didn't think his family would understand. That he laughed at terrible jokes and cried during animated movies and made terrible pancakes but excellent grilled cheese. And he'd learned her. The girl behind the camera. The one who'd survived her father's death by refusing to let herself feel anything. Who'd been invisible for so long she'd forgotten she deserved to be seen. They'd fallen in love slowly, carefully, like 2 people learning to trust that the ground beneath them was solid. Jalisa. She turned at the familiar voice and found Orlando weaving through the crowd toward her. He wore a navy suit, his hair slightly disheveled because he'd been running his hands through it, which meant he was nervous about something. Everything okay? She asked. Everything's perfect. He caught her hand, pulled her toward a quieter corner. I just wanted to tell you something before the night gets away from us. What? Orlando's eyes were soft, full of something that made her heart stutter. I'm proud of you. These photographs, this gallery show, all of it. You did this. And it's incredible. You helped. You paid for. I paid for the space. You created the art. Orlando's hand came up, cupped her cheek. You're extraordinary, Jalisa Monroe. And in 1 month, you're going to be Jalisa Santino. And I'm going to be the luckiest man alive. Still corny after 6 months, Jalisa teased, but her eyes were wet. Always. Orlando kissed her softly. I love you. So much. I love you too. And she meant it. This man who'd been a panicked stranger 6 months ago had become her home. Her partner. Her unexpected miracle. They'd started with a lie whispered in a golden ballroom. But they'd built something real. Something worth keeping. As they stood there, holding each other while the gallery buzzed around them, Jalisa thought about that terrified girl who'd walked across a ballroom floor because she was desperate. Who'd taken a chance on something impossible because she had nothing left to lose. She never planned to belong to a mafia dynasty. She never planned to fall in love with a man who made terrible pancakes and played midnight piano and looked at her like she hung the moon. But love doesn't ask permission. It just arrives, unexpected and overwhelming, and asks if you're brave enough to hold on. Jalisa was. She held on tight. So there you have it, a fake engagement that turned into the realest love story. If this had you hooked from start to finish, do me a huge favor, smash that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this. Drop a comment below telling me what you thought of Jalisa and Orlando's journey. Did you see the chemistry coming, or were you as surprised as they were? And don't forget to hit that like button to let me know you want more Mafia romance content. Seriously, your support means everything and helps me bring you more captivating stories every single week. Thanks for watching. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best love stories start with the craziest lies. See you in the next one.